Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello friends, welcome to Chaitanya Studio at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. Myself, Dr. Vinodel Desai, working at Department of Computer Science, Sardar Patel University, Vallabh In today's sessions, we will talk regarding various effects in terms of image opacity, rounded corners, shadows and transitions on our web page will be discussed. So before we proceed, let's understand what is image opacity. So the opacity in CSS is the property of an element that describes the transparency of the element. So whenever we want a transparency on the object of or any element, then we have to provide an image opacity property. It is the opposite of transparency and represents the degree to which the content will be hidden behind the element. The value of the opacity lies between 0.0 to 1.0, minimum to maximum, where a low value represents high transparency and a high value represents a low transparency. The percentage of opacity is calculated as opacity percentage is equal to opacity into 100. Properties of image opacity. First one is number. It specifies the opacity from 0.0, that is full transparent, to 1.0 fully opaque. If we have to apply it on an image element, then we can specify through a image opacity property and then number 0.0 to 1.0. Then we can have a filter property as well, which will have a value of alpha in terms of opacity is equal to x. Then another property is initial. It sets CSS property to its default value. It can be used for any CSS property and on any HTML documents. You can specify it color columns initial, so it will set its default value. Then inherit property is there. So it specifies a property that should inherit its value from its parent element or base element. It can also be used for any CSS property and on any HTML document. Let's have a look here. That span element is given a color green, and then after for the dot extra class attribute, or we can say value span, color element has been given, or color property has been given a value inherit. Let's understand this opacity concept through the practical example. We have a opacity document over here. What we have done over here is that we have simply document containing a header, division, paragraphs, image. Okay, we have two image with the same, we can say, file, and we have defined a class for each one. One is forest one and second one is forest. Now see here, for the class forest 1 we have a opacity 1.0. When we are hovering on a forest class, then it is have a opacity of 0.5. okay. Then for the forest class we have opacity 0.5, and for the paragraph we are simply defining this font size property or font property itself. But right now we have commented it. As you can see, we are not going to apply it on forest. Okay, class selectors we have defined forest 1. So the forest 1, as you can see, is defined for the image 1. Okay, and for the image 2 we have defined a class forest. So whenever we will hover on the second image, then it will have a opacity of 0.5, while for the first image it will have a, we can say, a full opacity value, that is 1.0. But whenever we will hover a mouse on the second image, its opacity will change, or we can say to 0.5. Let's execute the program to understand it. We have provided a hover effect to understand this. Okay, this is a opacity. So two images as we have discussed, one is having a full opacity value 1.0, so it looks like as it is, but here second also looks like as it is, but when we will hover a mouse, let's see, its opacity will be reduced from 1.0 to 0.5 as you can see now. So it adds a transparency. Okay, so this is what the opacity value reflections on our web page for any kind of image you want. Next point is rounded corners. To create a rounded corner, we use the CSS border radius property. This property is used to set the border radius of element. The syntax to set the border radius is simple. We have to set the property, we have to write the property border radius and then specify the value. Okay, we can set the radius value to all four corners. The corners would be, we can say border top left radius, border top right radius, border bottom left radius, border bottom right radius. So let's have a look to understand border corner property with the practical. We have, okay, let's try to understand this first. Okay, we have simple each rounded corner. Our document contains simply 3 paragraphs having a ID round corner 1, round corner 2 and round corner 3, and we have each ID a different border radius properties. Okay, for the first ID round corner 1 we have a radius of 15 pixel, 15 pixel, 30 pixel and 5 pixels. Background would be padding, width and height is the common property we are setting regularly. For the second paragraph we have a border radius of 15 pixel, 50 pixel and 30 pixels. And the third we have a border radius is 15 pixel and 15 and 50 pixels each one. Now let's run this and try to understand the effect of radius round corner property. See here. So based on the provided value of a round corner, the paragraph has been, we can say, cornered as per their value. See. For the first round corner, we have provided 4 corners of each. So proportionally the corners has been rounded. For the second, we can say paragraph, we have provided 3 values. So proportionally the corners were rounded in that way. While in this last paragraph, we have provided 2 values as you can see. Okay, 15 pixel and 50 pixels. So it converts it appropriately. Moving next to another rounded corner examples to understand the border radius property. Okay, round corners is used with a border radius property. See here, border radius. If you will use here in this document, we have simply a one header and division block with a container class, rounded corners. Simply paragraph content is rounded corners. So in a container class selectors, we are providing various CSS effect in terms of border, width, height, background, color, text align, and then after we are providing a border radius to all 4 corners with a single value, that is 10 pixels. So all the borders of this, we can say, container class selector will be applied with a 10 pixel round. Let's run it. Actually, which is the file name? Rounded corner. This one. As you can see, okay, it is cornered with a 10 pixel. If you change it, then it will be reflected. 20, 30. Instead of 10, let's make 30 pixel. and refresh it. So again it changes. So this way we can change the border corners using a border radius property. Let's have a look of to another program. Here for each one we have specified 25 pixel border radius property, for the route corner another 25 and another 25 for all these three paragraphs. Now let's test. For all three paragraphs we have set as common property. See here, all three contains different objects sorry, but having a same common round border property, that is 25 pixels. Because each one is having provided with a different mechanism. Background color, one is with a background color, another with we can say content, and third one with a we can say image. As you can see b.jpg in a background, so the image is provided. That's why the content is getting changed for each paragraph. Okay, but the more important focus for us is what border radius property to set. You can change it, okay, as per a requirement, and make the round of the border convenient to the web page layout. You can set even 55, not an issue. Just refresh the page, you will get to know and see. Okay, the paragraph 3 border radius is changed in a 55 pixel round corners. So this is all about we can say rounded corner effect of CSS, that using the border radius property we can make a border of objects in a round manner. Moving next is a shadow property. The shadow effect property in CSS is used to add text and image shadow in HTML documents. The text shadow is a property to add shadow to the text. You can use to apply it to the text and any of its decoration. It is accepted in comma separated list of shadows. Each shadow applied is described by sum of combination of x and y offsets from the element, its blur radius and its color. Box shadow. To add shadow effects around any element's frame, you can use box shadow CSS property. You can set multiple effects by comma separated list. Each box shadow applied is described by x and y offsets combination relative to the element, blur and spread radius and color. The syntax to write a box shadow and text shadow is very simple. For box shadow, it specifies the horizontal shadow, vertical shadow, blur and color of box shadows. That means total 4 parameters we need to specify in terms of horizontal shadow, vertical shadow, then blurring and color, blue or any other color of box shadow. Then for text shadow, it specifies the horizontal shadow, vertical shadow, blur and color again of text shadow. Okay, the same kind of mechanism for both shadow effect, box shadow and text shadow. Let's have a look to understand it practically, the shadow effect. Let's go for that. Here we have a simple document containing header 1, welcome to BAOU, and on that select as H1, we are providing a shadow effect, text shadow with 3 pixel, 3 pixel, 8 pixel and red color. Okay, as we discussed each parameters, this first parameter indicates what? First parameter indicates a horizontal shadow, second parameter indicates vertical shadow. Okay, third parameter indicates blurring effect. Okay, and fourth one is color. So horizontal and vertical shadow if you want, then you can provide with these values. Okay, and it will be reflected in a green color. So let's first run it to understand, and then after we'll make necessary changes to understand how horizontal and vertical shadowing effect is reflected on our web page content. Okay, let's see how it is showing to us. So this is welcome to BAOU. Now let's increase the horizontal shadow value and see how it is reflecting. Instead of 3, if we'll write 5, what kind of reflection it delivers? Let us see. Get it refresh now. Okay, it is having a little bit effect. Increase it by more, that is 10, and try to save it and refresh the page to understand it. Yes, now it reflects. Again increase it by 15, so you can easily get it. Save it, refresh the page again. Now it is reflecting in a horizontal manner, horizontal shadow. Okay, again keep it as it is default, that is 3 pixels we set. Now change the vertical shadowing effect from 3 points to 15. Okay, and just save it and refresh the page, so it will vertically provide the shadowing effect, as you can see now. So this is what the actual effect of shadow, vertically and horizontally on a, we can say, text shadow property. Another example, let's go for that. Here we have various, you can say, headers, header 1, header, we can say 2 headers is there with a h1 size, and another division block like is there. Okay, and we are providing a, we can say, shadow effect on the division block only. Okay, and h1 block as well. Okay, so on a h1 we are providing a text shadow, while division is a block, so we will provide a box shadow effect of a 40 pixel and 40 pixels, vertical and horizontal, while in a text shadow we are providing 1.5 pixel and 1.5 pixel each. Let's run it to understand both the shadow effect. As you can see, okay, two, we can say the headers were having a common effect, while the division block is having a, we can say, effect of box shadow of 40 pixel horizontal and 40 pixel vertical. So it looks like this. If you change it from horizontal to 40 to 50 or 60, and let's see, save this. Okay, 60, save it, and let's refresh the page to understand. See here. Okay, so this is a horizontal effect. So this way we can provide us text shadow and borders, box shadow effects on our web page using a CSS property, box shadow and text shadow. Then the transition effect is there. So transition in CSS allows us to control the way in which transition takes place between the two states of the elements. For example, when hovering your mouse over a button, you can change the background color of an element with the help of CSS selector. We can change any other or a combination of properties through. We can use the transition to animate the changes and make the changes visually appealing to the user, and hence giving a better user experience and interactivity. There are 4 CSS properties that you should use, all or in part. At least 2, transition property and transition duration is must to animate the transition. Okay, total 4 properties there, but you can use all or in part, but at least 2 properties should be used. One is transition property and second one is transition duration. Transition property, first one, this property allows you to select the CSS properties which you want to animate during the transition. Transition property is having a value in terms of none, all, and then after property 1 to up to n. Its value would be a none, all, or we specified that any one from the property specified. The next is transition duration. This property allows you to determine how long it will take to complete the transition from one CSS property to another. We can say syntax of this transition duration would be simple. We have to provide the time in terms of second and or milliseconds. So during that seconds it will complete the transition. Third property is transition timing function. This property allows you to determine the speed of change and the manner of change during the transition. The change should be fast at the beginning and slow at the end. Transition timing function having a value or in the form of is in, is out, is in out, step start, step end. There are other values that is this transition timing functions can take. Only the most frequent and simple are mentioned here. The fourth property is transition delay. This property allows you to determine the amount of time required to wait or to delay for the particular transition takes place. Transition delay syntax requires simply the time in the form of second or milliseconds for the delay purpose. And in short, the shorthand property to provide for all four kind of properties is simply a transition. Then the value would be the property name to be applied, then the duration, timing functions, and the delay. So in shorthand property, you can specify all the four properties in a single line. Let's try to understand transition through the example. So in these documents, you can see that we have in a body tag one header is there and another division block is there, okay, having a class attribute. So for the header, we are providing simply a color and text align property, and for the division and having a class 1, we are providing a transition. Other properties as usual we are using with respect to other content, but the transition property we have used for the height, that is 2, width 2 and background 2 seconds. That means it will be reflected within a 2 seconds for the height, width and background. Whenever we will hover, it is going to take place, okay, as we have provided a hover effect on the division object, or we can say block of our document. So simply whenever we are hovering, this transition effects will take place for 2 seconds for the horizontal, height, width and background. Let's test it. Okay, right now it looks simple, okay, division block, but now when I am hovering it, it will take the effect. Hover out. This way the transition will take place. That means the object will move from one state to another state through the transition effect. Let's try to understand through another example. Here also we have simply provided 4 paragraphs, okay, and each for, we can say they all are the part of the division tag, as you can see, okay, they all are the subsets of division tag, or we can say child of division. So the division is provided with a hover effect, so whenever we will hover it, the effect will take place for the transition in terms of what. So we have provided here the width should be for applicable for the 5 seconds and ease in parameter is provided for the 0.2 seconds, okay. So let's run it and understand it. Transition 1. Okay, while it looks very simple, but when I will hover, it will take the transition start. Likewise, once again it will come to its original state. If I will change the property from is in to is out, is in out, linear, let us test what happens. Is out, instead of is in, let's update to is out. Save the file. Now move to the browser and refresh the browser, okay, and now hover the mouse on the division. So it is, compared to the previous is in, it is faster, okay. Change it to other, we can say like step start or we can say linear. Okay, let's it to test with a linear. So we can test with different values. Li linear. Okay. So now save the file, go to the browser, refresh it, and just mouse over the division. So it's little bit changes it takes, okay, compared to the is in. So this way we can have a transition effect on our web page content whenever the user we can any kind of functionality required on our web page document through the transition property like transition duration, transition delay, transition function. Okay friends, in these sessions we have discussed various important effects of CSS on our page. In terms of image opacity, then we have applied rounded corners to the border radius property. Then we discussed how do we create a shadow effects on our web page by applying a various shadowing properties, text shadow and box shadow. And at last we discussed various transition properties for the objects to be transmitted from one state to another state by providing various transition duration, transition delay and its property values. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः